Dwayne Wilder's next. I've already introduced Dwayne once today. So, I think I'd make this a really short one and say Dwayne has recently published a book with Foothills Press, which is called Under the Only Moon. It's a delightful book. I'm fortunate to be able to have it. And he's going to come up and read for us now, I think, from that.
Thank you. Does the recording need the microphone?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Am I in the recording yet? Is the recording pointed at me?
It is, but you need to come over this way some. And step down here this way a little bit. Nope, that. I'm sorry. I'm not running the thing, so. Yeah, your head's being cut off, so I think you need to go back closer to the stage.
I hate it when that happens.
I know. I don't want that to happen to you. All right, one more step, please. All right, I know. I don't want you to fall. I'm like, oh my God. All right. Okay, that should be okay, I think. I know, but that's how this thing is.
Say what?
You get down on your knees, that'll work too. Then you can come
Yeah, really. All right, I think I figured this out. So go ahead.
Okay. I won't last long on my knees at this age. In 2006, on Labor Day, after walking home from my participation in the Labor Day parade, I was taken with the question, what has happened to us? And I wrote this poem, Labor Day. I have seen the American folk taken as a cruel harvest, seen them moved from their roots and craft, seen them bagged like leaves, like shredded secrets, collected on the empty fields of their own homes, bulldozed by mortgages and urban renewal into landfills and capped with an impervious clay of official policy. I have seen them in the fish markets of capitalism, globalism, trying to flip back into the ocean of their labor, now far away. Craftspeople, secretaries, engineers, factory workers, aircraft fabricators, software programmers, farmers, sent slithering into the holding pens of unnecessary prey. Their jobs obliterated or taken overseas to those glad for the dimes. Seen them pacing streets, left with pocket change, begging at intersections to work for food, given programs run from surplus desks in abandoned buildings by begrudging bureaucrats. Seen their energy distracted, their contrariness broken, their native work hobbled, their creativity managed to death. Seen the knowing nods and companionable sympathy from war veterans and welfare moms. Been there, still doing that, crazy with it. I have seen the American folk like plains of wheat gathered from over the earth, enriching the vision and courage of the land. Seen them scythed in a fell salvation by preachers called, they say, by Jesus to the seat of American power from now till Armageddon, the obedient to be swept up in the rapture. Knowers of truth, baiters of men, women, blacks, baiters of Muslims, Jews, trade unionists, baiters of lesbos, queers, and other wildlife, dividing and twisting until one skein doesn't know its sisters and brothers, the next skein over, though shoulder to shoulder they be. I've seen them derided for not giving their children to war, while the evangelists of American empire quietly hide their own. seen their sons and daughters answer the call of duty or get drafted or dodge the draft, sent to hold the checkpoints of American hegemony, battling for everything back home against people standing in their own homes. Seen them come back alone, unblessed, mangled, sometimes mocked, spat on by pacifists, covered in the ironic excrement of war's glory. Seen them insulted for knowing that, for paying too much attention, for not paying enough attention, for not shopping, for owing too much, for being fat, for being scrawny. Seen them insulted for having sex and poverty and children and sorrow instead of loneliness, then having the loneliness after all. For having sex when you don't want babies, for needing an abortion, although you abhor abortions. Seen them insulted for living too long, for not being old enough, for voting while black while poor, for being too black, not black enough. Seen them insulted for being too smart, too dumb, too lost, too saved, too punked out, too goth, profile likely to be packing heat at school. I have seen the American folk chumped by admin, salesmen, pitchmen, spammers, public relations hackers, cooing celebs certain you want their lipstick, growled at to buy pickup trucks or luxury combat vehicles to drive under the sparkling sun through your maple shady life. Buy your drugs, get your doctor to prescribe them, or not. Buy stocks, buy bonds, buy a gun. 2, 3, belligerence is your American right. Drink lots of beer, drink Pepsi, drink Coke, drink Cranapple, drink something for Christ's sakes. Shave your legs, shave your arms, shave your face, shave your ass, wax your crotch, buy pretty perfume, buy your dreams, buy your life. Be sexy. Be powerful with remote control in the blue glamour of your TV. I've seen us fight fist fighting in street clothes on Jerry Springer, seen us dying of news poisoning, our wan faces considering the phony voices blasting out of the televisions bolted to the ceiling. Seen us drowning in the blood of innocents we have bombed all the way into Jeffersonian democracy, then all the way back out again. Seen us drowning in the CIA's assassinations, our own butlers of terror day after day drowning us at the School of the Americas, at Gitmo, at Abu Ghraib, at who knows where. Seen us choked with the effort to speak what our bones know as we hang by our tongues from America. We cry out for one. We cry out for one who will convene the American folk away from dreams of empire, away from wars of adventure, away from foreign policy made of explosions, poisons, and fear. We cry out for one who will convene the American folk to belong to the American land. We are its forests. We are its rivers. We are its cities and towns, the scintillating life of its streets. We, the lakes on its breast. We, the long marches of its prairie. We are the obdurate activity of its mountains, the black obsidian of their deep fire. We are its heart, its mind, our thoughts, our dreams, our hopes for our kin and our folk, for our nation, for its soil, are none other than this American continent, its aspirations, its long meditation. Our lives are the tides of its dream.
Next is Lori Nolasco, who many of you here know. She is often asked where she originally came from, and the truth is she's from Rochester, like so many of us. She's lived in Paris, she's earned a doctoral degree there, and she's lived in the Middle East as well as the Dominican Republic. She's published in June 2010 Ariadne of the Freezing Rains through Foothills Publishing, and expects to have a chapbook out this fall, which is called Demetrio's Scythe, a suite of elegies.
I like to call myself the polar opposite of Vincent Goffin. It's an inside joke. But I like to think of my alter ego as 6'5", 250 plus pounds. And when I read, I try to convey that big, bold voice. Hunger and homelessness often go together, and a lot of times when women do not swear slavish devotion to their abuser, they're often threatened. Oh, you're going to go hungry without me. Oh, you're going to be out in the streets without me. So I've taken the nursery rhyme entitled, This is the House That Jack Built, and I've composed a response to it entitled, This is the House That Jack Bought. This is the house that Jack bought. This is the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the floor with the rotting planks where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull who lived in the house that Jack bought. These are the bare walls that ooze blood that floods the floor with the rotting planks where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the sliding door that shatters as the spirit calls, as shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood that floods the floor with the rotting planks where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the deck with the worm-eaten wood, where the sliding door shatters as the spirit calls, as shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood that floods the floor with the rotting planks, where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull, who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the garden, full of deadly nightshade known as belladonna, lying behind the deck with the worm-eaten wood, where the sliding door shatters as the spirit calls, as shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood that floods the floor with the rotting planks, where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull, who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the hooded cobra that slithers through the garden, full of deadly nightshade known as belladonna, lying behind the deck with the worm-eaten wood, where the sliding door shatters as the spirit calls, and shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood that floods the floor with the rotting planks, where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull, who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the pasta cooked in love, and the moon in June that shone above the table where we broke bread and prayed, while the shepherd led, but the devil stayed, and released the hooded cobra that slithers through the garden, full of deadly nightshade, known as belladonna, lying behind the deck with the worm-eaten wood, where the sliding door shatters as the spirit calls, as shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood, that floods the floor with the rotting planks, where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull, who lived in the house that Jack bought. This is the maiden, now forewarned, who wakes to the birds that sing in the morn, and on that night partook of the feast that belonged to the first and not to the least. The poisoned pasta cooked in love, and the moon in June that shone above the table where we broke bread and prayed, while the shepherd led, but the devil stayed, and released the hooded cobra that slithers through the garden, full of deadly nightshade, known as belladonna, lying behind the deck with the worm-eaten wood, where the sliding door shatters as the spirit calls, as shrieks resound off the bare walls that ooze blood, that floods the floor with the rotting planks, where once walked the porcelain doll with the lacerated skull, who lived in the house that Jack bought. A note about nightshade, which is known as belladonna. Because of its toxicity and the ability of most people to recognize and extract its healing qualities, belladonna is not usually used in gardens. And about the cobra, this venomous snake will rear up and expand its hood when it feels threatened or angry. And because I feel close to the Dominican people who were instrumental in my rebirth, my second husband, by the way, is Dominican, and earlier this year, a delegation of Dominican firefighters came from the sister city of Puerto Plata. And since Anita read a poem about heroes, I thought I would end with a poem entitled Rock Bachata. Bachata, as you know, is a Dominican dance form. It's usually about the end of a relationship. Set to a rock beat, bachata still conveys a feeling of hope. This is for Sergeant Pedro Manuel Martinez Sanchez from the Fire Brigade of Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic, and he was instrumental in bringing about a reinitiation into my creative self this past summer. Peter was the rock of my salvation, and from him has sprung hope eternal. He has led me to the deepest waters, sower and giver of life. Immersed with him in the river beneath the river, guided by him into the far woods, once silent though consumed by flames, I again become the great woman. Nonetheless, the current carries him away once more. Maidens, mothers, crones all retreat into the barrenness of their souls, into the nothingness of the desert. And still I partake of the endless feast in the sight of my enemies, my song no longer reduced to ashes. His bright presence remains. Dark dreams break the surface.
David Michael Nixon is next. He has 4 poetry chapbooks and 1 full-length limited edition poetry book published. Venus in Retirement is his most recent chapbook. His poems have appeared in many periodicals and anthologies over the years, including Yankee, Blue Line, Hazmat Review, and Knocking on the Silence. He has given many poetry readings around New York State and is also an a cappella singer. Thank you, David, for coming up.
Okay, thanks, Colleen.
You're not in the picture.
I'm not in the picture.
How about the other way? The other
To
way.
yeah, in front of the mic. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you're in the picture.
Now you're,
I'm in the picture?
we got you in the picture.
Great. All right.
Now you are in the picture.
Yeah.
My first poem was written after 9/11. Sometime it's called Difficult Inspiration. I wanted to let the wind's breath guide me so I could float from ease to ease and tack a hard course when the journey required. But after the air buoyed suicide planes to murderous ends and thousands of lives exploded in New York, Pennsylvania, and Washington, I soon began to know that I must try to guide my breath and what I could of others into pursuits of peace, so that at least some human winds might turn to an updraft of forgiveness, and not a path to bear more bombs, whomever they might erase. For once the breath entered us, we should have used it to spread life, and not as another freezing winter wind. Next one is called A Hard Journey. Every day I want to smack someone, to make a cutting comment, to swear at some jerk, or just someone who innocently annoys me. Every day I must struggle to stay my hand, my tongue, to keep what peace I can, so that the small wars of the present do not flare up and threaten to rage into deadly conflagrations. You have to fight fire with hard-won caution, so that you may not need the holy water of protest and nonviolent intervention. So you may save that liquid bomb to pour on fires others are bound to set. Even if I were Smokey the Bear, peace would be a hard journey, always alert to hold back my own folly, always so many fires to try to put out. All right, this poem was in Breaking the Silence back when Paloma Campana did that, those shows and writings about domestic violence. It's called Trying to Rise. I fear my life may yet prove short, but if I am good, I hope to come back as the Cheshire Cat, all mysterious toothy smile in the branches of night, composed and calm above the bemused strangers. So I go on trying to rise above the blows and the gnawing hunger, striving to give kindness for injury. If I stay pure, death may make me the Cheshire Cat. Okay, if I have time, I have two more. This is called Hunting the World. When the world weaves slowly over the hills, we all lie waiting in the bushes. At the prearranged signal, we all jump out and cover the world with arms, legs, torsos, tumble the drunken globe to the ground and tear its limbs off, eat its heart out. Swarming over the shattered carcass, we gnaw and gnaw, but none grows full. My last poem is called Friends Meeting Wherever We Are, friends as in Quakers. Today I have heard too much of my own voice. May I sit in stillness and listen for the light within me. If no light comes, silence will calm me. When light appears, may I hear it and speak its truth. May others sit until light comes. May I hear theirs and they hear mine. Then no one's voice will be too much. Each will speak inner truth and each will hear.
This will at least be easier to stand behind. Next is, thank you, David Michael. Next is Donna Marbach, who many of you know here as the guiding light for several years, the first several years of its existence of Just Poets. She also is a well-published poet herself and the owner, editor, publisher of Palettes and Quills Publishing.
Whoa, I broke it. Okay. Colleen asked that the poets read about change, and I gave a lot of thought to that. And I thought, how do poets change, get people to change? And I think it's by being the eyes and ears for people, because you can't change until you identify that there's something that needs to be changed. So I'm going to read some poems where I'm trying for myself to see things that maybe need some change. This one's called Vacancy. I was hardly aware of him, or his old suede coat with broken zipper and frayed sleeves. Not the flannel shirt stained with food, sweat, and brown tobacco, nor the black watch cap pulled down so low he had no eyebrows. I barely glimpsed those steel gray eyes that stared past traffic signs and subway stairs, or the crystal eyes, that frosted hair and whiskers, to age him well past real time and tears. I passed him by without a word, a shadow man who endures a life of light and dark, reflected in the storefront's glass, a window's whisper written backwards, yet clearer there in that mirror than in the daily light. I never really noticed him until today, when hoary winds hollowed out the streets. I felt a chill, pulled the collar of my coat close around my ears and chin, then hurried past his vacant place. As much as there's homelessness in the world, there's also hunger. And I spent 3 years in Mexico watching invisible people of the streets. This is a poem called Forbidden Fruit. By Walmart, on the corner where Vallarta and Los Escritores meet, two small girls in dirty clothes and skin as brown as cinnamon beg for brass and silver coins. Among the lights that flash a gaudy dance of red and gold and green, they slide, small dark shadows between the two clean foreign cars, palms upturned and eyes like never-ending holes. I wave one child aside and fantasize a welfare world, while up ahead the driver in the red Volkswagen hands apples to the girls. Small gold balls, ripe, juicy suns. The younger takes a bite so big she cannot chew. Sweet rivers overrun her lips and dribble down her chin. The other wraps both hands around the fruit as if a relic from some saint, her face a sudden study of surprise. When she looks up, I press the gas and go. And we have people around us that we need to see in everyday situations. This is a poem about a situation in a classroom. It's called The Social Studies Lesson. In 8th grade, we studied foreign countries to better understand ourselves and others. Once, I went to class with a mark across my face, clearly printed in blue-black bruises from the metal buckle of my father's belt. "What happened?" asked Mr. Thomas. "I fell," I said. "Oh," he said, then turned away to list the imports and the exports of the Belgian Congo and Brazil in yellow chalk on a green board. Last poem. This poem was originally written in response to a piece of art by Dave Tilley, and it was references the Iraq War. It's called Unvoiced. Empty paper prayer, mere shadow of the tree upon whose shaved and salvaged flesh float form's watered words. True talk climbs clouds, leans against your crescent moon, prattling, verification, dilatation, veracity, verbosity, velocity, in death's frayed TV voice. Can we hear you now? The artificial sweetness of your blood lingers on the small straight lines that were your mouth. Your face kisses concrete. Your severed fingers signal peace or victory, perhaps, for a jihad martyr. All around, all smoking guns, butchered soldiers, roaming charges. No, no, we cannot hear you now. We never heard. You have no voice. You lay silent on the end of endings, a torn and folded paper kite that once played hopscotch with a wind we never saw. Thank you.
I want to say a particular thank you to the people who read during the last hour. Donna, Lori, Vincent Golphin, Dwayne, David Michael Nixon, and Anita Augustin. Thank you very much. What's happening next is that Ed Scott has a play that he's written, and there's going to be a reading of that play.